To Looking Forward, the Looking Forward show. We're so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here. We have a great show for you today. So, as some of you may know, this is Career and Technical Education Month in the country, and we're here celebrating CTE Month. And I'm really excited about it because we have some great guests today. Really looking forward to it. Before we get there, I want to catch up on a few things. So, first of all, I want to wish everyone out there a happy belated Valentine's Day. It was yesterday. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Got some chocolates and flowers and everything else, and enjoyed the day. Big shout out to Lou Narvaez. Lou couldn't make it with us today. He's usually on our shows every week, giving us an update on probation and parole and what's happening in Pennsylvania and around the country. And anyone that missed our last show, you got to go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. And again, you're watching our show or listening to our show on Xfinity 66 and 96 on Vios TV, 29 and 30 on Roku, Apple TV, and we have our YouTube station. And you can check us out at the Looking Forward show. So really glad to be here. I'm Jeff Abramowitz, and for the next hour, we're going to take a journey through career and technical education. We have rockstars of rock stars on today to talk about it. Before we talk about and get into this show, I also want to mention that this is Black History Month, and if you do anything this month in recognition of the month, what you should do is find a good book and just read up. Doesn't take a lot. Go to the library, go to your bookstore, and take some time. The two that I'm going to recommend today have been out there for a little bit. One is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, and the other is The 1619 Project. And it's sitting on my desk. I'm about halfway through the book by Nicole Hannah-Jones. They are both amazing books. They're great ways to educate yourself on Black history in our country and throughout the world. And I highly encourage you to jump in. So you're here at Philly Cam, and we're live streaming on Xfinity and 66 and 966 on Vios TV, 29 and 30 on Roku and Apple TV and on YouTube. And tomorrow you'll be able to listen to the show on WPPM LP in Philadelphia, which is 106.5 FM. So there's multiple ways for you to connect with us. If you have any questions, please, you can send an email to lookingforwardshow@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Or if you'd like to be a guest and come on the show, we'd be glad to have you to jump on with us. So we're going to take a really quick break before we bring on our first guest. And our first guest is going to be Anson Green from Tyson Foods. Anson is going to be talking about Behind Every Employer podcast and the great work they're doing there. So we'll be right back with the Looking Forward show. At Looking Forward, and I have to tell you that the next guest, you're going to get energized just listening to him, because I just think about him and my heart starts beating a little bit faster because he just gets me going. But Anson Green is talent development trailblazer across the country. He has been in the workplace, adult education, community college, immigration and education environment. And he just brings bold vision to workforce solutions across the country. Anson and I met not too long ago in some work that he's doing on Behind Every Employer initiative, which is sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. But Anson currently leads economic opportunity efforts at Tyson Foods. His portfolio is just crazy. He's doing things in career pathways, modeling Tyson's 121,000 frontline team members, as well as he drives their system of digital divide for equity in Tyson Foods, working with immigration and refugees. Anson has a history in adult education and literacy in Texas. And he's been recognized as Outstanding Administrator of the Year by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. The list goes on for Anson. And for me to continue without bringing him on, we'd be doing no justice to the show at all. So welcome, Anson Green. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jeffrey. Just great to be on the show. And that resume sounds more amazing than it feels sometimes, but really great. And I just was reflecting. It's funny, our paths never really crossed until recently, because your name was one that I always saw out there. It's so amazing that with all the places that we've both been kind of bouncing in and out of in our careers, that we have somehow not touched base till recently. So it's
I
great to
know.
be on the show,
So,
and great to work with you.
so Anson, you got to tell us a little bit
Yeah.
and educate me a little bit too, because I know some things about you. But how is it that you moved from you were a state director of adult education and literacy in Texas, and how
Yep.
was it that you moved from there to Tyson Foods?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've spent over 20 years in adult education in different capacities, but always kind of focused on workforce development, starting as a GED teacher in a welfare to work program back in the late 90s. But the transition from being the state director in Texas, which was a massive system, 80,000 students, 6,000 teachers, big system. I was kind of looking for the next big adventure, and I had been working with Tyson Foods at their 10 plants that were in Texas, kind of working on workplace literacy programs in those plants with our local schools. And I always loved it. Loved the people at Tyson, loved what they were doing. And of course, it was like right in my lane in terms of workforce development. So I started thinking, that might be my next, phase. I'd never worked in the private sector. Everything I'd ever done was public sector in, community colleges and school districts, and then at the state. So I was ready to make the leap, and I knew in my career I needed to kind of make that leap, or maybe I'd be a state bureaucrat for the rest of my life. So the opportunity came up, and a great job came up, and they were willing to really uh, go in some new directions. I kind of got hired to build the career pathway portfolio at this company, a worldwide company. So it's been a great adventure for the last year and a half that I've been
Yeah,
there.
just crazy because when we talk about this, is that I believe education is so important when you talk about a career pathway and career
Mhm.
development. And you kind of are making it happen. Like you're in that private sector where you have that ability to really connect those dots. And that's a remarkable place to be right now. Really exciting stuff. So we actually started learning more about you and some work that you were doing with the Behind Every Employer initiative. Can you talk to us a little about that? What that initiative is and what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. When I got to Tyson, and really this has been building for years in my other roles, I worked with businesses over and over and over. And I always felt like I was having the same story and hearing the same story from the businesses, that they felt alone, that they wanted to do something with that entry level frontline workforce. And there was really no good forum for them to do that. And when I got this job at Tyson, all of a sudden I realized, hey, I've got a big platform here. Let me put together some sort of initiative, some sort of coalition of businesses that are all kind of having the same discussions about entry level workers, frontline workers, training them, upskilling them, and those types of things. And as I was brainstorming this actually with the CEO of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, Sharon Bonney, and she said, hey, we had this same idea in our mind to put together kind of an initiative that's designed for employers. And so we kind of brainstormed this idea. They had already gotten some drafts and a good partnership with Skills USA to jumpstart things. And so we've kind of launched this initiative called Behind Every Employer. It's behindeveryemployer.org. And it's really designed with the business voice first, meaning that trainer, that HR manager, that plant manager, that businessman that is eager and interested in carving out a discussion and really seeing what's happening in that space with other businesses.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the initiative is it really does bring those two together. It brings, that education piece and that career and training piece together with that work experience that people need to be
Mhm.
successful. Can you talk a little bit about what has the success been behind this initiative, behind the Every Employer initiative?
I mean, we're in our first year. It's been super well received. Everywhere we go and talk about it, we get more adherence to it. We did a big conference this year to kind of kick things off, bringing kind of just showcasing best practices out there. We know this is a space that we've got to really build a following behind, because unlike apprenticeships and other upskilling initiatives out there, you think about industry cluster initiatives and things like that. That's what you really see the focus on when it comes to publications, when it comes to conferences, when it comes to big eye-catching, initiatives. And there isn't that same space when it comes to workplace literacy and workplace programs for lower skilled individuals in the workforce and those frontline workers. So we're spending this year really getting the word out. We had this big conference. I am spending a good amount of time trying to build the case with new businesses that I talk to. I've got this growing list of businesses that really want to get on board. And it's so wonderful to have a platform now that we can share best practices, share stories, and we're really getting excited because we're about to start a podcast where we're going to really be able to broadcast far and wide these stories firsthand.
Yeah, and that we're going to talk about that in a second. When we talk about career and technical training, though, one of the
Mhm.
things that I'm most just amazed by is that it really does take this blending of education, getting people smarter. Like I think of digital literacy skills.
Yep.
When in order to really function in today's world, you have to have that skill set in order to be able to work many jobs. Gosh, in order to be able to get your paycheck sometimes,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Just so you can navigate that. And we've just never we've been so far behind on this stuff, really integrating that into the workforce,
Yeah.
so that I always talk about this. When men are just as involved or have challenges or just enter the workforce,
Yep.
people stay at jobs because they know that they have a career pathway. They have something they're going to stick with over time, and they can move up the ladder. And unfortunately, if they don't have those skill sets or the educational background, it often stands like this big block right in front of them that they just can't get
Huge.
over. Yeah, it's really hard. So I'm curious, can you talk a little about the Behind Every Employer initiative? Does it work at all to try and break down some of those silos to get people over them? Is that the intent of the whole project?
Yeah, I mean the intent is to really create awareness that there are models out there. You kind of have these. It's like the tale of two cities or the tale of two workforce environments. You have the employer community that's just looking for answers when it comes to entry level frontline workers, new entrants into the workforce, and then you have these delivery systems, the colleges, the schools, adult education that have models. There are models out there, and oftentimes it's like ships passing in the night. The two don't know that they both exist and that they're both working on the same initiative, really for the same individual, that frontline worker, that entry level worker. You brought up digital. That is such a huge piece right now for everyone, but especially in the business world. And you brought up Justice Involved. And I really think about that group because sometimes they come back into the workforce without having had that experience of being on the internet, without having that experience of being in social media and all those kind of things. And now, I mean, it's been 15 years that there are some businesses you've had to apply online to get jobs. You can't do a paper-based application, of course, almost anywhere anymore. But when you look at what businesses are doing, I see them over and over running really fast towards automated systems, towards
Mm.
automation and things like that. But they aren't asking the critical question of, can our workforce across the continuum use these tools effectively? and what kind of training do we need? And that's really where these digital resiliency and digital literacy initiatives are critical. And we're fortunate that our adult education and workforce development systems are really picking up the pace in terms of delivering on those kind of objectives.
Yeah, they really need to. One of the big things I talk about as I go around the country, and I know you do as well, is the staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Like we know that trillions of dollars are going to come down through the infrastructure legislation that was passed and all this money coming in for these careers to rebuild our country. And yet, if we don't skill people up to those jobs to be able to get them, then really what's going to happen in our workforce? And we're going to talk to Dr. Chris Laney later on in the show a little bit about the dynamic of what's happening. We talk about
Yeah.
the great resignation now, but honestly, for a lot of men and women that are entering the workforce, this is the time, right? This
Yep.
is a time to get those jobs and start moving up the ladder. What are you seeing on the ground, like maybe at Tyson or maybe some of the employers that you're seeing? Can you explain it all, kind of why? I know we have this huge labor shortage, but we also don't see this rash of people coming back into the labor market. And I'm wondering if you might have some perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very turbulent market. That would be the word I would use for it. And it's really been dynamic since the Great Recession back in like 2007 and 8. If you look at the long continuum of workforce development and labor market, but the last few years since the pandemic has really disrupted traditional models. It has kind of given the whole world almost a pause in thinking about their own career designs and what kind of work they want to do. We see so much happening with people changing jobs, looking for new opportunities. It is a buyer's market if you're a job seeker right now. And that means that sometimes these entry level positions are really hard to fill because people can find jobs all over the place. But it's changing also what those job seekers are thinking of in a work environment. And where they want to work and how they want to work. And of course, you hear a lot about the white collar world moving to online and businesses getting rid of, their office spaces because they're finding great effective work just with people working from home. So there is just so much turbulence. I think right now, if you're a labor market, analyst or something, they've got their work cut out for them because it is these things. We're used to like long-term trends and being able to really see forward quarters and months and years. And here, things seem to change by the month, and sometimes it feels like even within the week in our local labor markets.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, Anson, I'm curious, you and I are working on a project together. That's why I
Yeah,
brought you on the show,
yeah.
because we have a podcast, a national podcast that's being launched soon, Behind Every Employer podcast. And why don't you tell everybody what's it all about?
Yeah, this is going to be a great forum for businesses and for the schools and providers and service partners and workforce development experts that serve those business communities to have a discussion about that entry level workforce. And I want to keep coming back to that because that is a workforce that in some ways is left behind in a lot of the big discussions, and it is also the workforce that when you talk to businesses, they feel the most critically aware of in terms of cost, in terms of keeping those workers and really running their businesses. I've been involved in this workforce development world, my whole career, and I've always seen that it is very rich with resources and ideas and models at that higher skill level, but lower skilled, it just gets shallower and shallower in terms of what businesses think they can do, what they have at their disposal, and how their public sector partners, their schools and colleges, can bring ideas to them. And so we really want to use the podcast to show models, and we have dozens of people lined up that are coming from all different sectors that are working in that frontline level space. You think of healthcare, and I think something like 65% to 70% of a hospital staff is that entry level workforce, but they are critical to not only the accreditation and the safety in the hospital, but also the customer service. A hospital is a place where you're typically going in crisis or in need, and you want up and down from the parking lot attendant up to have good customer service and skilled workers. And so we see all these sectors. You see it in construction where they're really wanting to get more efficient in their practices. And that means having higher skilled workers, but they're not going to find a new replacement workforce out there. They've got to upskill the workers they have. And that means finding new models that really work well for English language learners and those that need upskilling in their basic skills.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So we're looking forward to it. The
Yeah.
podcast is the Behind Every Employer podcast. It's going to be launching, I believe, the end of the month, beginning of first week of March. Keep an eye out for it. I know that you'll be able to get it and be able to watch the podcast on coabe.org and check out the Behind Every Employer website, which is behindeveryemployer.org, correct?
That's correct.
And it's been great having you on the show. I look forward to working with you on the other podcast. And thank you so much for all you do in helping adult learners and employers across the country really get it. So thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with Rodney Bruton from Orleans Technical College. We'll be right back. Back at Looking Forward, and I am again, you're watching us or listening to us on Xfinity 66 and 966 on Vios TV 29 and 30, Roku, Apple TV, YouTube channel, and tomorrow we'll be on the Philly Cam Radio on WPPM LP 106.5. Our next guest today, I'm really excited about. So Rodney Bruton is president of Orleans Technical College. He was with New Community Corporation as chief administrative officer. His CV would take me about a week and a half to read all through, but Rodney is so well qualified and has done so much in the workforce development and career technical education field. He previously served in a dual role as executive director of Newark Workforce Investment Board and director of workforce development for the city of Newark. And I believe that was under Mayor Cory Booker. So we're going to hear about that. And has also been the director of workforce development at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. Definitely just when you talk about the guest that has a target on him for our show, Rodney Bruton is the one. Rodney, how are you? Welcome to Looking Forward.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. That's a wonderful introduction. I'm tapping myself on the shoulder saying, is that me? But thank you. And thanks for having me. I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So it's Career Technical Education Training Month. I'm curious, I saw these numbers this morning. I always do some homework before every show. And the CTE industry in the United States, it employs more than 9.2 million individuals, but it also educates more than 71 million students. And that correlates to about $251 billion in a gross national product every year. It's amazing that, we do so much in this space, and yet it never seems like it's enough. And I know, firstly, congratulations. I know you recently came to Orleans Technical College. So my first question is, how's it going?
Well, Jeff, no, it's going extremely well. I think my time here at OTC and being a part of the Jeffs family has been enriching. It's been really sort of a quality learning experience for me. But as you sort of frame what CTE is and framing it in the context of celebrating CTE month this February, it really brings to light the need of this work, right? From a workforce development perspective, from a human development perspective, and just really meeting the needs of employers. So putting numbers and putting sort of the imprint CTE has here in the United States really comes back to, Jeff, the lives and imprint that it has on those that we are sort of committed to supporting and changing over time. So,
yeah, so we talked about this earlier when I talked about with Anson, was the reality that how important it is to marry, first of all, to provide training and skill development to students that can actually fulfill the need in the workforce. Like really, what are the high priority demand sectors that are out there that need support? And can you talk a little about what you do at Orleans Technical College and what are the careers that you prepare people for there?
Yep. So I think the first sort of avenue in terms of what we do here at OTC, and it's really a complement of the work that's been done over the number of years, but it's skill-based, competency-based education, right? So we're looking at how best to equip our students with the skills and competencies to be productive workers in the skilled construction trades, right? So that includes, carpentry, that includes air conditioning, refrigeration, and heating, residential and commercial electricity, plumbing and heating, and also the all-encompassing building maintenance program, which includes carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and a bit of AC, air conditioning, refrigeration, and heating. So I think, outside of the labeling of the programs and the courses that we're offering, what's really interesting, Jeff, is the work we do is skill-based, competency-based, credentialed based, and it's sort of connected to the real world and what employers are looking for. So that's CTE.
It is by definition CTE. And I got to tell you, every time I walk in that building, and I'm up there every now and then, but every time I walk in there, I get energized because I walk in some of the classrooms and OTC and your staff just seem to get it. But the students there have such energy. And one of the things that I'm really just amazed by is every time I'm up there, they actually build a house inside one of your labs from the ground up. And I get in there every time and I just want them to first of all, I want to be able to pull it out of there so we could sell it. You could use it somewhere else, but it's a full functioning house from the bottom up. And that is the kind of thing you just can't get in a classroom. You need to be in it and using your hands and doing it.
Correct. Well, the first point to that, Jeff, is the infrastructure, the facilities, the campus. Our college here must have the capacity to build such a house, right? So Orleans Technical College, just the physical campus and the facilities, I would say, John, is A+ class 1. So let's start with that, right? You need the facilities to do such a project. Secondly, our carpentry class, they take the lead in building the house from scratch, right? So it's not just the building of the house, but it's the theoretical aspects, the classroom, the theory that goes along with that. And then it's the practical skills that you learn in the classroom, and you're putting it to practice to actually build a house to code, right? I think the second piece in building our house is students. Is really obviously driven by the students. It's our electrical students come in and they actually wire the house. So it's a sort of entire team effort from our carpentry students designing the house, putting together the blueprint, ordering supplies, constructing the house, putting the roof, siding, and finishing the whole project, and then having our electrical students come in and do the wiring of the house. So it's a real live active house absent, live plumbing. But really what it does, it shows our employer partners, again, that our carpentry students, and I dare say our electrical students, have the skills and competencies to transition into an existing sort of team and workforce and add value to an existing employer. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So one of the things that also impresses me about OTC and the work you guys are doing up there is that it's just Anson hit hard on this when we talked earlier about that employer partnership and how crucial it is that we really teach our students to the jobs that are out there and the skill sets that are really needed. And one of the things that is the most amazing about OTC started not that long ago, and that's a partnership you have with CVS. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the partnership with CVS is really employer driven, right? So CVS had a need for frontline CVS workers to work as pharmacy technicians in particular. So in partnership with CVS, they built out a lab, an actual, pharmacy technician lab where students learn how to dispense medication, how to take orders, how to fill orders. And then secondly, with the practical lab, it's a part of the curriculum, but then there's the theoretical online classroom portion of the program that ultimately leads to an entry-level position with CVS. But it's really generated, Jeff, by that employer sort of driven concept that this is not something that we as workforce development practitioners think is needed is really driven by employers. And then secondly, in our partnership with CVS, many of the skills that we teach and the students learn are transferable. So we're very appreciative and thankful of our partnership with CVS. But again, the skills and the competencies learned through the CVS Pharmacy Technician Training Program could be used with other employers as well. So it's those transferable skills that are equally as important to us, whether it's a CVS or Walgreens and the other, but and the like. But it really speaks to that employer buy-in and partnership. And even the last point I'll make on the CVS sort of partnership, and then all of our programs, Jeff, is the curriculum itself is written and developed by employers, right? So we know exactly what the industry is requiring and asking for, and then it's gets our job to sort of meet the need of what the employers are asking.
Yeah, it's really incredible because the whole they have actual full pharmacy built out from
Correct.
CVS upstairs there, where you're able to walk in and it's a functioning pharmacy where people are really learning hands on. But I think what's also kind of incredible is the fact that you have so many employer partners that are out there in the trades. When people are get their certification, that they have direction when they leave. And they're being married up with employers that need talent and that are looking for it. And there's a direct connection between the staff at OTC with all those employers that are out there that are looking for qualified workers.
Yep. Great point, Jeff. And you know, that's driven by our employee advisory committees by each program in each trade, led by Christine Bronson in our career services department. We're, you know, as a fully functioning career and technical college, you know, from the front end to admissions to the back end on career services and placement. And on that point with employer buy-in, it's really led by our program advisory committee members, which again is comprised of employer partners, right? They review our curriculum, our equipment, our supplies, our tools, what are some of the industry trends and changes, and ultimately they serve as, you know, good potential hires, employers to hire our graduates. So
Awesome.
It's
great stuff. So if somebody wanted to be, they were interested and wanted to contact OTC, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can visit the campus. Just visit us. We're located right on Red Lion Road here in Northeast Philly, 2770 Red Lion Road here in the Northeast. You can also visit our website, www.orleanstech.edu. And we also have walk-ins, right? We are seeing clients and interested applicants to just come in person to tour the campus and facility, meet with our admissions department, talk to our current students and instructors. I would also add, Jeff, I mean, we certainly work with those with criminal backgrounds and criminal convictions. We have a number of employers that hire graduates that have some level of involvement with the criminal justice system. We do require candidates just on the enrollment admission side, Jeff, to have a high school diploma or the equivalent, a driver's license, take a basic skills test, not necessarily a pass or fail test. And we have somewhat of an open enrollment process. We generally take in for our daytime programs enrollments every 3 months. Yeah, we are constantly recruiting, and you know, we only ask that those that are interested in our program, our institution, is that they're serious minded and they're committed to their own professional growth. And if they can sort of meet those two requirements per se, I think it's OTC's role to finish the job and create an opportunity on the back end.
Awesome. It's great stuff. And I'm really inspired. So I'm going to ask you one last question before we go to our next guest. One last question for you is, like, if you have one dream up there that you love to see, one program that you love to bring up there, that's kind of itching to get at, what's it going to be?
Good question, Jeff. And again, I'm new to the role as campus president, but I really think we, you know, should move into two areas, right? If I can expand, and one would be in moving into healthcare. I think there's still a dire need for entry-level healthcare positions, and with the previous guest referenced that. And I think in IT, I think we have the space, we have the capacity, a wonderful campus here. So certainly healthcare and IT are the two areas of growth in the workforce development space. I think we're primed to get into within the next 6 months to a year.
Good stuff. Rodney Bruton, congratulations on your selection up there. And we wish you all the best at OTC. Hope that you can hang out with us for a little bit on the show. If not, we understand. But we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with our next guest, Dr. Christopher Laney. And Chris is from MZ Burning Glass. So we'll be right back and Looking Forward show.
Great.
Forward, and we're on Xfinity 66, 966, Bios TV 2930, Roku, Apple TV, YouTube, you name it, we're out there. I got to tell you something. I'm really excited about the next guest because Dr. Christopher Laney is Senior Workforce Strategist for MZ Burning Glass. Chris specializes in workforce and economic development, strategic workforce planning, comprehensive planning, and data analysis. So I should bring Chris on. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. It's really, it's a pleasure really to meet you. And I have to tell you, like, I live by this philosophy that a person without data is just another person with an opinion. And you guys are living proof of that. I believe Albert Einstein had that quote. And the reason is that, quite frankly, when it comes to workforce development and understanding what's happening, we need to really understand the data and what it's telling us. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. But thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. And it's been fun to listen to the other guests and just the amazing things that's happening across the country and just helping just the industry of workforce development in itself and hopefully helping their businesses and their institutions.
Yeah, so much to talk about. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you do at MZ Burning Glass?
Yeah, so at the heart of MZ Burning Glass, we are a labor market analytic firm providing data across the board. So whether you're Amazon or you're Joe's ice cream shop, you need data to help you better plan your workforce priorities within your organization. Also, through the many institutions, higher education institutions using our data to help inform their programs that they're creating in their local economies, to help inform their students with data, to help them find jobs in their communities. So that's one other area. And then I have the fortunate opportunity to work on the workforce and economic development team and really working with those community organizations or states that are trying to plan and figure out how we can use data to better solidify the future of job seekers, finding great opportunities and moving up the economic ladder. And we do that through a variety of ways. Obviously, we have access to a lot of great data, but we take that rich data and we put that into tools that is easily digestible by these institutions, community organizations, or businesses. And so we are fortunate to be able to work with so many great organizations across this country and across the globe.
So I love it. I love all the work that you do. It's and right now you can't just talk about a hotter industry sector for what's going on when you look at our country and the labor markets and stuff. So I guess I want to start there a little bit. First of all, I guess the pandemic has obviously shaken up our country when it comes to the labor force, labor market, and that kind of thing. And everyone's talking about the great resignation. And I kind of think, like with most of the things that happen in our world, that there often is an alignment sometimes that happens. And sometimes it's caused by something horrific like a pandemic, or sometimes it happens just organically. But I do think this is kind of bringing people back in line to kind of a reality sense of, what's really important. And in a way, as tragic as we've suffered in the labor market, I think there's been some good that's come from this, an individual kind of career development kind of notion. And I was wondering what your take on what's happening right now post-COVID as we kind of come out of it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've noticed is that many of the trends that happened before the pandemic were trends we were already monitoring. And so, if you remember in January of 2020, we had one of the lowest unemployment rates that we've had in forever, right? And so people were struggling to find talent then. And then long behold, a pandemic hits, and it absolutely devastated the labor market in many ways. And what we're finding coming out of the other side is just the importance, especially from an employer standpoint, the importance of valuing people. And that's been kind of the key message here at MZ Burning Glass is everything that we're seeing in the labor market, everything that we have noticed, all the trends, all the data comes back to one simple philosophy. It is the importance of the individual, the importance of the person. And so employers who are out there trying to find quality talent are trying to come to terms with how do we value that individual, whether it's from a retention standpoint, as you mentioned, the Great Resignation, how do we keep that person engaged and happy at work, but also taking it a step further. If we're going to recruit great talent, how are we going to compete for that talent? And it goes back to valuing that individual. And so when we take all those data points that we're looking at, and we can talk about the various buckets of why there are individuals that are on the sidelines today, and we can discuss the labor force participation rate and all the data, but it really comes back to that simple philosophy. How are we valuing the individual?
Yeah, you would think that as the COVID started and people started to go through this evaluation of where I was going to stay, and am I going to stay with my employer? Am I happy there? That kind of thing. That more and more people left the workforce, and then you'd think that they'd go back and maybe go back and get some upskilling or go back to school. But actually, enrollment fell from 18.2 million students in 2019 to 17.8 in 2020. That's a loss of almost half a million students. And even college enrollment dramatically over the last year has gone down. And I'm curious, like what's really happening when it comes to the educational component of it? And are we doing enough targeting those people that have left the workforce to, again, upskill them and maybe get them to the jobs that they really want?
Yeah, I mean, this from your experience through the years that when the economy drops, unemployment is up. That's usually a time for individuals to start to evaluate their skills and their value from those skills. And so they typically look to higher education as an opportunity to go back and learn new skills and degrees and hopefully make them more valuable, at least the idea of more valuable to the employer. This was very different because we found that individuals, they weren't going back to an educational institution to be able to upscale. In fact, many of them stayed at home and was trying to determine like what's going to happen next. So as individuals were getting furloughed and they were getting laid off, instead of running towards an educational opportunity, they just kind of sat back and waited. And we invested billions of dollars into our economy through the CARES Act that allowed individuals to take that time and be able to take a pause. And not just the stimulus payments, but we're also talking about home deferments and student loan deferments and a variety of financial obligations that we were used to just got put on hold for a while, and it allowed families and specifically individuals who were either laid off or furloughed to sit back and go, I think I'm going to wait this out a minute. I'm going to wait to see what's going to happen and then make a determination. And we certainly saw that towards the end of this past year, where savings accounts were at an all-time high through 2020, at the end of 2020 and in the early 2021. And then over the last quarter of 2021, those savings accounts got back down to pre-pandemic levels, which tells us that a lot of individuals took that extra revenue that they were earning and then they put it into their savings account and then they lived on it for a period of time. And then the assumption is, well, now savings accounts are back to those pre-pandemic levels and they're going to return back to work. And we are seeing that. We have seen that many individuals have returned back to work, but we still have over 5 million individuals that are on the sidelines right now, not in our labor force today. And so those are the individuals that we are starting to build strategies around and starting to target.
Yeah, you guys, you published an article, the Sansdemic, and I love this, Sans being without people. And I read the article, and I was really very captivated by the reality that this is the way they describe it, the Sansdemic, without people in the workforce. What happens and when does it stop? Like at what point are we going to see all of a sudden this rash of people coming back into the workforce, and now the competition for job changes and those kinds of things change? Any idea? We
Yeah,
won't hold
so
you to it.
yeah. So, I mean, when you think about a Sansdemic, again, without people, this is something that we were starting to experience before the pandemic. And we believe that it's a tsunami of multiple data points that really cause the situation that we're in today. It's not just one. It's not the fact that individuals were furloughed or laid off, but it was the fact that we lost, more than 2 million boomers than we were expected. Individuals 55 plus that decided, you know what, I'm just leaving work for good. And so that's one factor. We also believe that the drug epidemic plays a huge role in the fact that we have nearly 1 million individuals out of the workforce today because there's some relationship to the drug epidemic. That's another key area. We still have quite a few of individuals that are choosing to go work for themselves and become entrepreneurs, but they're not employing anyone. They're truly just working for themselves and being part of essentially the gig economy. And we've seen that climb significantly over the last year. So you have all these various elements that are causing the Sansdemic. And the way that you get above that Sansdemic is replacing people. And we talk in that study that you referred to, the demographic drought. In that study, we talk about the birth replacement rate and how the United States and really much of the global economy has been under the birth replacement rate for nearly 30 years. And so if we're not replacing people and people are leaving the workforce, then what are we left with? And I would make the argument, I used to make this argument years ago when I was still in local workforce development, that we were so worried that automation was going to replace all these people. And we were going to have all these displaced people that robots and AI was going to replace essentially. And now we're saying you need AI, you need robotics, you need automation just to keep up with production. If I'm a business unit, I'm going to start thinking about how do I attract talent, but also how do I build in more automation just so I can keep up with production long term.
Yeah, so we gotta get Rodney to make sure they got some automation coming to OTC, and for sure. And we also need to think about this is the show is all based about justice, and it's our one of the big themes of our show, but the untapped talent pool of men and women that are justice involved and that maybe have some challenges in their past, giving them an opportunity and getting them back in the workforce. There's a 27% unemployment rate prior to COVID for men and women that are justice involved. So really opening that door up is going to be remarkably important and something we're pushing across the country to employers. And we're seeing employers really starting to engage. If people wanted to get more information on MZ Burning Glass and some of the studies and the work you guys are doing, the great work you're doing, how could they get some more information on you?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to mzbg.com, we are publishing studies regularly. We have another study, actually a follow-up to the demographic drought, which is the Sansdemic report we published in April of 2021. That we have a follow-up report that's going to be published in the next couple of weeks, and it really takes it a step further. Here's what's happening still after a year, but also what strategies can we start to implement as employers, as workforce development organizations, as higher educational institutions to be able to really tackle the challenges we're seeing in the labor market. You mentioned individuals formerly incarcerated or justice challenge is definitely a key part of those strategies. The Harvard Business Review put out a great study called The Hidden Workers, Untapped Talent, looking at these various demographic groups that have been underutilized in much of the labor market for many years, including individuals that are justice challenged, but also individuals that are differently abled or individuals that are previously veterans, and just a variety of untapped talent that we really haven't dived into in its full capacity. And that's going to be part of the future of the strategies that we need to do to tackle what's happening in the labor market today.
I love it. I love it. You're awesome. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing in this space. We're looking forward to reading some more the studies that are coming out. And we only got a minute or two left, but I do want to bring back on our guests, Anson Green. I know has been hanging out, and Rodney. I think Rodney might have had to step away, but I want to just Anson, you've heard from two great individuals that are working in this space, and I just wanted to give you we got about a minute and a half left, but just real quick, if people wanted to find out more about the podcast, how can they get it?
Yeah, the podcast is called Behind Every Employer. Or you can go to behindeveryemployer.org and just Google it, Behind Every Employer, and it'll come up there. It's a website with a podcast in it, so there's also resources and other things out there that individuals like our guest here today could connect with and connect their employers with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anson, for being on. And Dr. Chris Laney, thank you so much for all of your insight. I really, it's amazing all the work that's being done in this industry, and we appreciate you. Rodney Bruton at Orleans Technical College, thank you so much for being on. And again, we're at the center right now of some changing times, but we're hoping that you'll continue to watch our show. We are the center where justice meets workforce development and the community, and we look forward to having everybody back on and to hearing more from all of you in the future. So this is Looking Forward, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you again. Appreciate it.